In Concept D, we're going to be discussing how to determine the number of significant figures in various measurements. So a sig fig is a method for handling uncertainty in all of our measurements due to that different equipment have varying degrees of accuracy. So the number of significant figures is a direct result of the number of divisions the measuring device contains. So this goes back to Concept C when we talked about how to properly take measurements. So there's two big methods for learning how to do this. The first one I'm going to discuss is a list of rules you can follow in order to determine the number of significant figures. So the first method, in the first method, rule number 1 is that all non-zero numbers, so numbers 1 through 9, are always going to be significant. So in my example A, I have 74.23. They're all 1 through 9 numbers, so they're all significant, which means I have 4 sig figs. Rule number 2, zeros located between non-zero numbers are always significant. So in this number, 80,901, this 0 is between 8 and 9, so that's significant. This 0 between 9 and 1 is also significant. So I have a total of 5 significant figures. In number 3 rule, we know that zeros at the beginning of a number are not significant, and this one's kind of tricky usually for students. When we talk about at the beginning of a number, we're talking about the first 1 through 9 number. So let me just point this out on here. So in example C, we have 187. Now it seems silly to put the 0 here for 187. So the 0 being here, okay, is going to be insignificant. So I only then have 3 sig figs. Now in letter D, again, the beginning of a number does not mean where the decimal is. The beginning of a number is going to start with my first 1 through 9 number, which is a 4. So these 3 zeros are going to be considered at the beginning of a number. So we're going to say they are not significant, which means then I have 4 sig figs. Okay, this is a really important example if you're going to use this method because again, we're talking about the beginning of the number as the first 1 through 9, so these zeros are not significant. Rule 4, zeros at the end of a number that is not containing a decimal point are not significant. So in example E, we do not have a decimal point, which means then that my ending zeros are going to be considered insignificant. So I actually only have 4 sig figs. Now keep in mind these slashes are just saying that we're not keeping these as significant. Our number is still going to be 409,300. That's my number, okay, but only 4 numbers there are actually significant. And number 5, zeros at the end of a number containing a decimal point are always significant. So here we have a decimal point. This is an ending 0 that we have present, so we will count that. So in example F, we have 5 sig figs. In example G, we have a decimal point, which means then again, these zeros at the end are significant. So I have 6 sig figs. All right, so method 1 is the rules. Method 2 is called the Atlantic-Pacific method. Okay, this is kind of like a shortcut way of getting around the rules if you're not good at memorizing them. So 2 ideas you have to keep in mind. The first is if a decimal point is present, think P for present. If there is no decimal in the number, then think A for absent. So first you determine is the decimal point present or absent. Once you have that, you're going to link the A and the P to either the Pacific coast or the Atlantic coast. So P stands for Pacific, okay, and then A stands for Atlantic. And remember the Pacific Ocean is over on the western side of the U.S. Atlantic is over by New York on the eastern side. Based on what you determine in steps 1 and 2, again, imagine you're looking at the map of the U.S., you're going to count from either the Pacific or the Atlantic side. And similar to the rules that we discussed, you begin counting at the first non-zero number, so a number 1 through 9, from that determined side. So let's take a look at these examples. Here, we do not have a decimal point present, so this is absent, which means we're looking at the rules for the Atlantic coast. So that means I'm going to start on the Atlantic side. So I'm going to start on over here, the right. I'm going to go to the first 1 through 9 number, which is the 7, and then I'm going to continue counting any number that falls from that point on. Okay, so that means then I have 1, 2, 3 sig figs. Okay, again, my number is still 357,000. It's just that it only has 3 significant figures. All right, here again, I have no decimal point, so I'm looking at the Atlantic Coast rule, which means again, I'm going to start over here on the right where the Atlantic is. I'm going to go to the first 1 through 9 number and then count everything over to the left of that. So once again, I have just 3 sig figs for that number. Here, we now have a decimal point present, so I'm looking at the Pacific Coast. Okay, that means I'm going to now start on the left-hand side, so on the Pacific side, and I'm going to count, starting at my first 1 through 9 number, everything from that point to the right. So I have 4 sig figs for this number. Same thing here, I have a decimal point present, so I'm going to start counting on the Pacific side, which is on the left. I'm going to go to my first 1 through 9 number, my first non-zero number, which is my 3, and then I'm going to count everything to the right. So this number just has 3 sig figs. And then finally, again, I have a decimal point present, so I'm going to start on the Pacific Coast over here. I'm going to go to my first non-zero number, so I'm going to skip over the zeros until I get to the 3 and then count everything over to the right. So this number only has 3 sig figs. You can see how this ties into the rules that we originally learned, where these are all beginning zeros, so we do not count them. Alright, so consider if you're going to go with method 1 or 2, and then we'll discuss and practice tomorrow.